The real shock comes next week. Ethan Brooks' voice echoed in Daniel's mind like a prophecy, soft, calm, and terrifying. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a promise. It was a warning wrapped in something colder, something heavier. Something that made Daniel's chest tighten even now, hours before everything truly began. If only he had known what those words meant. If only he had seen the storm forming behind them. But at that moment, in the dim silence of his living room, his world was already collapsing long before the shock Ethan hinted at could arrive. Daniel sat hunched on the cold tiled floor, divorce papers scattered around him like broken glass. The ink from his signature had smudged slightly, the way ink does when it mixes with tears. His eyes were swollen, his breath shaky. Somewhere outside, a generator hummed faintly, but inside the house the air was dead. Heavy. Waiting. Stephanie's voice, sharp and cruel, replayed in his mind on a loop. I deserve someone on my level. Adrian loves me. He sees my worth. You never did. Every syllable crushed him again, even though he had heard it 5 hours ago. She hadn't even cried when she said it. She had spoken it like a woman placing an order at a restaurant, quick, casual, emotionless. Then she walked out of the house they built together, dragging 2 suitcases full of clothes he had paid for. A bitter tremor crawled through his chest. His vision blurred. His hand reached instinctively for the glass table to steady himself, but his fingers slipped on the smooth surface. A sharp pain shot up his left arm, then another, deeper, twisting, squeezing. His world spun. The divorce papers fell from his lap. And then, his body gave way. He collapsed, his head hitting the tiles with a hollow crack, breath caught between a gasp and a sob. Sir? Sir. Oh God, Sir Daniel. Grace's panicked voice shattered the stillness. She rushed across the living room so fast her slippers flew off. She knelt beside him, hands trembling as she tried to lift his head. She had seen this before, years ago, when her own brother had fallen the same way, collapsing from heartbreak, from pressure, from quiet suffering nobody noticed until it was too late. Her pulse hammered. No, not again. Not another gentle man crushed by someone who swore to love him. Sir, please. Sir, stay with me, she whispered, her voice cracking as she slapped his cheek lightly. Please don't die. Don't leave like he did. She grabbed his phone. Dead battery. Panic surged through her. She tried her own. No network. The generator's hum suddenly felt like mockery. Hands shaking uncontrollably, she dug into her apron pocket, hoping, praying for anything. Her fingers brushed something crumpled, an old card she had picked up from the gate a week ago. A phone number. She didn't remember what it was for, who it belonged to, why she kept it. She didn't care. She dialed. A man answered instantly, voice calm, deep, steady. This is Ethan Brooks. How may I help? Grace burst into tears. Please? I think my boss is dying. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. Ethan Brooks didn't hesitate. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask how she got his number. He didn't even ask what happened. The tone of her voice told him everything: fear, urgency, desperation. He had heard that tone once before, the night his own father collapsed in his arms. He moved before thought could slow him down. Send me the location, he said, already grabbing his jacket. Grace fumbled with her shaking fingers, sending him the address through WhatsApp. The moment the tick turned blue, Ethan was already in motion. Back in the house, Daniel lay unconscious, his breath shallow and uneven. Grace placed a pillow under his head and hovered over him, whispering frantic prayers through trembling lips. Sir Daniel, please? You helped me when no one wanted to hire a woman like me. You paid my daughter's school fees when I couldn't. Don't leave. Don't leave me to explain to her that good men always suffer. Her voice cracked under the weight of memories. She remembered her brother, smart, gentle, full of dreams, slowly pushed into darkness by a girlfriend who convinced him he wasn't enough. She remembered the night she found him on the kitchen floor, the night she realized heartbreak could kill as surely as poison. This wasn't just her employer lying on the ground. It was another man who didn't deserve to be broken. Footsteps thundered up the driveway. A knock, firm not frantic, hit the door. Grace jumped to her feet and pulled it open. A tall man stood there, slightly out of breath but focused. Fresh sweat clung to his forehead, and the faint rumble of a car engine outside suggested he drove faster than anyone should at that hour. I'm Ethan, he said. Grace grabbed his arm and dragged him inside before he finished the sentence. Ethan knelt beside Daniel and checked his pulse, then his breathing. His brows tightened. Severe emotional shock, he murmured. could trigger a shutdown if not handled. Grace widened her eyes. He was fine yesterday. He even smiled when I served breakfast. Ethan gave her a long, knowing look. That's exactly how my father looked the week before he collapsed. Grace's throat tightened. Ethan lifted Daniel's eyelids, checked response. Weak but present. He needs grounding, Ethan muttered, shifting Daniel into a recovery position. And professional help after this. Did something trigger him? Grace hesitated, then pointed at the scattered divorce papers. Ethan glanced at them. His expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened like a man recognizing an old enemy. She left him for someone else? He asked quietly. Grace nodded. Ethan exhaled slowly through his nose, gripping his knee for a moment to steady himself. Then this wasn't just heartbreak. It was betrayal timed with stress, exhaustion, and perhaps unfinished dreams. Before Grace could ask what he meant, Daniel stirred. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy, landing first on the ceiling, then on Grace before finally settling on Ethan, a stranger kneeling beside him. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. Why did she choose him, over me? Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the divorce papers, scanned the signatures, noted the date, the cold wording, and the name of the man Stephanie left him for. Adrian Cole. Ethan's jaw tightened. He folded the papers and placed them beside Daniel with deliberate care, as though setting a weapon on a table. Daniel, Ethan said, voice steady, I think I can help you. But not with medicine. Grace blinked. Help, how? Ethan looked between them, Daniel broken on the floor, Grace trembling beside him, and made a decision he had avoided for years. Everything begins, he said quietly, with the truth you were never told. Daniel's eyes widened, breath halting. Ethan leaned in. And trust me, the truth is going to hurt. Daniel blinked slowly, trying to understand the stranger kneeling beside him. His heart pounded like a drum inside a hollow chest. Every breath hurt. Not physically, emotionally. The kind of pain that didn't just sit inside the ribs but wrapped around them like barbed wire. Ethan placed a steadying hand on Daniel's shoulder. You're safe, he said softly. But you need to breathe slowly. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Like this. Daniel tried. His breath trembled. Grace hovered anxiously on the other side, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, afraid even to sniff too loudly in case it disrupted Daniel's fragile state. As Daniel's breathing steadied, Ethan sat back slightly, his posture straight, calm, strangely grounded, like a man trained to handle storms. Let me ask you something, Ethan said gently. Has she been distant for long? Your wife. The question pricked something sharp inside Daniel. Yes, he whispered, swallowing hard. 8 months, maybe more. She was always on her phone, always going home late after work. I thought she was just stressed. He let out a dry laugh. I didn't want to believe anything else. Ethan nodded, his face unreadable. Foreshadowing flickered in his eyes. Did she ever talk about your work? Your inventions? Daniel's expression tightened. She said they were childish. That I needed to stop dreaming. His eyes filled again. So I did. I stopped. I gave everything to her. I thought it would make her happy. Grace squeezed her fingers together. She had once overheard Stephanie laughing on the phone, saying, Daniel still believes his ideas matter. So cute. She never told him. Now she regretted it. Ethan took a deep breath and gestured toward the crumpled divorce papers. You need to understand something, Daniel. She didn't leave you because you lacked worth. She left you because someone manipulated her, and because she saw herself through the wrong mirror. Daniel frowned weakly. Manipulated, by who? Ethan hesitated. He wanted to soften the blow. But lies would kill Daniel faster. Adrian Cole, he said finally. Daniel's eyes darkened with confusion and hurt. Adrian, the CEO? I've never even met him. Why would he? Because he knew who you were, Ethan interrupted. Long before you ever knew who he was. Daniel stared at him, bewildered. Silence stretched. Ethan continued, voice lower now. Years ago, Adrian approached a company that was developing a safety prototype for construction sites. That prototype threatened one of his biggest international contracts. He wanted to eliminate competition. You, without knowing, were the man behind that prototype. Daniel went still. Grace gasped softly. Ethan's voice softened, but it did not lose its edge. You signed away your development rights to your employer at the time, yes, but your design notes, your personal sketches, your raw drafts, they still hold the original intellectual fingerprint. Adrian knew eliminating you emotionally would destroy any chance of you reviving that design. Daniel's breath trembled. But how would he even know about my work? I never shared. Your wife did, Ethan said quietly. The room froze. Daniel shut his eyes, pain flaring across his face. A memory surfaced, Stephanie at the corporate retreat, laughing, excited, telling him over the phone, "The CEO is so impressed by our team's ideas." He thought she was proud. He didn't know she had told Adrian all about her smart but directionless husband. Ethan placed the papers on Daniel's lap. She was targeted, Daniel. Seduced, yes, but also used. For access. For information. He exhaled deeply. Adrian didn't steal your wife because he loved her. He stole her to weaken you. A single tear slipped from Daniel's closed eyes. Ethan's voice dropped into a whisper. And that is just the beginning. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. Across the city, in a penthouse that shimmered with glass and steel, Stephanie Cole, formerly Stephanie Johnson, leaned against a marble kitchen island while a man she barely recognized anymore kissed her neck. Adrian Cole. Billionaire. CEO. Power incarnate. The man she gave up her marriage for. She pretended to smile, though the weight of her choices pressed against her ribs like a too-tight corset. Adrian pulled away just long enough to sign a $10 million partnership contract without even glancing at her. Done, he murmured, sliding the paper toward a waiting assistant. The assistant bowed and left the room. No celebration. No glance. No acknowledgement of the woman whose life he'd upended. Stephanie forced a bright laugh. You didn't even read it. Adrian smirked. I didn't need to. My lawyers vet everything. He reached for his drink. You worry too much. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. That line, you worry too much, was the same thing her father used to tell her mother, right before he walked out on them with a richer woman. Stephanie had sworn to herself that she'd never be like her mother, weak, abandoned, helpless. So she grabbed the first sign of stability, the first man with power, the first man who looked like he would never leave her. She never realized that power leaves more easily than love. As Adrian scrolled through emails, Stephanie's gaze drifted across the penthouse. Gold accent shelves, designer chairs, a bar filled with bottles that cost more than Daniel earned in a month. Daniel. Her stomach twisted. A memory hit, uninvited, sharp. Daniel sitting at their small kitchen table, smiling as he handed her a printed schedule he made. Your exam days are tough. I'll handle dinner this week. Just focus, okay? Your dreams matter. She shoved the image away like swatting a fly. That was the old life. The small life. But the thought didn't settle. It rattled inside her, creating hairline cracks in the confidence she'd been faking for months. Adrian's phone chimed. He opened a message, eyes narrowing. Something in his posture shifted. Stephanie took a step forward. What is it? Nothing you need to worry about. He clicked the screen off quickly. Too quickly. Stephanie's breath hitched, not from love, but from the familiar sting of invisibility. She noticed the partially open drawer beside his desk. On instinct, her eyes flicked toward it. Inside, she glimpsed a stack of documents, blueprints, sketches, diagrams. But before her eyes could register details, Adrian shut the drawer with a swift, irritated movement. Don't snoop. Her stomach churned. I wasn't. I just... Stephanie. His voice dropped into the cold tone he used on employees about to be fired. You're here because you were a comfortable variable. Don't become a complication. Comfortable variable. The phrase felt like a slap. And somewhere deep inside her chest, a small but undeniable fear sparked to life. Maybe she wasn't his partner. Maybe she was expendable. She forced a smile anyway. Of course. But she saw something in his eyes, something calculating, something hidden. And for the first time since leaving Daniel, Stephanie felt the icy sting of doubt. She stepped away from Adrian, but the echo of his words followed her like a ghost. Comfortable variable. She didn't know it yet, but Adrian had planned every part of her downfall long before she filed for divorce. Back in Daniel's quiet living room, the echo of Ethan's words seemed to hang in the air long after he stopped speaking. Grace sat frozen beside Daniel, her hand hovering over his arm like she wanted to comfort him but feared touching him might shatter him entirely. Daniel's eyes were unfocused, his breathing shallow, as if each revelation added another weight onto his chest. My wife told Adrian about my invention? Daniel whispered, voice fragile. She never cared about the prototype. She called it useless, childish. People often laugh at what they don't understand, Ethan said gently. But in your case she didn't just dismiss it. She delivered it into the wrong hands. Daniel shut his eyes tightly as if doing so could pull back time, undo choices, unsay words, erase the betrayal. Ethan continued, at the corporate retreat 3 years ago, were you aware she spoke to Adrian about her husband who dreamed too big? Daniel's heart dropped. He remembered that retreat vividly. Stephanie had called him excitedly that night, telling him how amazing the resort was. He had been at home, stirring a pot of indomie for dinner, smiling at the sound of her laughter. She never told him she had spent half the evening with Adrian Cole. How do you know this? Daniel asked weakly. Ethan hesitated, his jaw tightening slightly before he answered. Because, he said quietly, I was there. Daniel and Grace both stared at him. Ethan leaned back against the coffee table, eyes distant, as though he were looking through a window into his own painful past. I used to be part of Adrian's executive circle, Ethan said. Not his friend, nobody is his friend, but I was close enough to witness how he operates. Years ago he ruined a company I helped build, cut me out of my own shares using legal loopholes, and manipulated people like chess pieces. Women especially. Grace covered her mouth in shock. Ethan continued, voice steady but edged with old wounds. At the retreat, Adrian fixated on Stephanie, not for love, not for attraction, but because she mentioned something that caught his interest. Me, Daniel whispered. You, Ethan confirmed. Your prototype. Your drawings. Your ability to see engineering problems other people miss. Adrian doesn't like threats and he definitely doesn't like competitors. So when Stephanie unknowingly handed him the name of the man behind a design he couldn't buy, couldn't copy, and couldn't fully trace, he did the next best thing. He leaned forward. He dismantled the man piece by piece. Daniel's hands curled weakly at his sides. A memory flickered, Stephanie asking him to delete his old sketches from their shared laptop. She'd said it was clutter. He had trusted her. Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out a thin folder. He placed it on the coffee table. I found evidence, Ethan said. Emails from Stephanie's office computer. Drafts of patent forms Adrian intended to file under her name, claiming you abandoned the original design. That folder contains everything, timestamps, messages, meeting logs, even the first document where Adrian wrote, acquire husband's intellectual notes through Stephanie. Grace gasped. He planned it? All of it? Ethan nodded once. This wasn't an affair that turned into betrayal. This was a betrayal crafted long before the affair. Daniel pressed a trembling hand against his forehead. Shame, anger, heartbreak, confusion, all of it crashed into him like waves. What? Why me? I was nobody. Ethan's eyes softened with a strange mix of pity and respect. That's the thing, Daniel, you were never nobody. Adrian realized it first. Your wife realized it too, only too late. But you? You were the only one who didn't know your own worth. Daniel looked up, eyes filled with something new. Not strength. Not yet. But the beginning of something that could grow into it. Ethan exhaled slowly. And that, he said quietly, is why I'm here. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. David sat alone in the hospital's quiet lounge, the hum of distant machines blending with the faint echo of hurried footsteps. The world around him moved in soft blurs as though time itself feared touching him. His body still trembled from the earlier collapse, but now it was his mind, his memories, that strapped him down more tightly than any medical device ever could. He stared at his hands, hands that once held a family together, hands that once held her, hands that now shook from the realization that everything familiar had been snatched away in a single afternoon. Moments later, the maid, Grace, returned with a cup of warm water. Her steps were cautious, as if she feared he might break again the moment she spoke. She set the cup in front of him and sat, twisting her finger anxiously. Sir, the phone. That number I called earlier? Someone called back. Her voice quivered. He asked to speak with you directly. David blinked. Who? Grace swallowed. A man? Said he got a missed call from you. He sounded urgent. Almost like he was expecting you. David frowned. Expecting me? I don't know anyone I was supposed to call. But inside his chest, a strange tension slid under his ribs as though something huge, something buried, was lifting its head from the past. He reached out and picked up the phone Grace had placed on the table earlier. One missed call. One returned call. A known number. No name. Did he leave a message? David asked. Grace nodded slowly. Yes, he said. Tell him it's finally time. That's all. A cold shiver coiled around David's spine. Time for what? He pressed the heel of his hand against his forehead, trying to search through years-old memories, but everything felt fogged. He wasn't the kind of man who had secret enemies or hidden debts. His life had been painfully simple. Work, family, sacrifice. Nothing more. Nothing dangerous. But the way Grace described the man's tone, firm, almost commanding, felt too intentional, too precise to be a stranger's mistake. Grace leaned toward him. Sir, do you think it could be someone connected to Madam? She hesitated. Her new husband? Or someone around him? David shook his head. No. Michael never knew me. And I never knew him. His voice darkened. But her betrayal, it didn't start today. Something pushed her. Something, or someone, has been pushing her for months. He stared into the cup of water, seeing not his reflection, but flashing fragments of Elena's recent behavior. The strange late-night calls. The weekends she insisted were girls' meetings. The random expensive gifts she couldn't explain. The way she avoided his eyes anytime he asked simple questions. All the signs he dismissed because love made him blind. He set the cup down. The unknown number flashed again. Calling. Grace gasped softly. David's heart slammed once, heavy and deliberate, like a warning from fate. He hesitated, thumb trembling over the screen. Something inside him whispered that answering this call would drag him into a truth far bigger than the heartbreak he was already drowning in. A truth he wasn't prepared for. A truth tied to the same billionaire who had stolen his wife and shattered his life. He finally answered. He raised the phone slowly to his ear. Hello, he said. A calm male voice replied instantly as though waiting just beneath his breath. David, I've been trying to reach you for a long time. You deserve to know why your wife left you. And it wasn't because of money. David froze. The voice continued. She left because of something she's been hiding from you for 7 years. Meet me and I'll tell you everything. David's pulse hammered. The voice gave a location. The call ended. David lowered the phone, breath fractured, eyes widening as the small first crack of truth sliced through the darkness. Grace, he whispered. Yes, sir? Everything I thought I knew is about to change. David stepped out of the hospital later that evening with a steadiness that felt borrowed, like someone else's strength had been poured into him. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of distant rain, and the sky hovered in a shade of evening blue that looked almost bruised. Grace had insisted on accompanying him, but he gently refused. Whatever waited at the location that voice gave him, it demanded he arrive alone. The address led him to an old, quiet district on the outskirts of town, far from the polished neighborhoods where billionaires lived and even farther from the chaotic heart of the city. The street lamps flickered weakly as if they hadn't been maintained in years. A row of abandoned shops stretched across the street like forgotten memories. At the far end, an old storage warehouse stood with its metal frame rusted at the edges. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of dim yellow light spilling onto the ground. David's steps slowed. His breath deepened. He pushed the door open. Inside, the warehouse was mostly empty, except for a single table at the center and a man seated behind it, dark suit, clean-shaven, and eyes sharp enough to slice through silence. He looked up the instant David entered, as if he had been tracking every second of his arrival. You came, the man said. David stood still, studying him. Who are you? The man's lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. My name is Adrian Cole. The name landed without recognition. Do I know you? No, Adrian replied. But your wife did. A cold tremor flickered across David's chest. What do you want from me? Adrian leaned forward, folding his hands. Nothing. I owe you the truth. That's all. He motioned to the empty chair. Sit. Against every instinct screaming inside him, David sat. Adrian exhaled slowly, as though preparing to unearth a truth too heavy to be spoken casually. Elena didn't leave you because she fell in love with a billionaire, he began. She left you because she was afraid. Terrified, actually. For you. For herself. For your daughter. David's eyes hardened. We don't have a daughter. Adrian nodded slowly. Yes, you do. David's breath caught sharp in his throat. What kind of sick? She was pregnant 7 years ago, Adrian said, voice low but steady. But she hid it from you, because she wasn't sure the child was yours. The world cracked. David leaned back unconsciously, the chair groaning beneath the shift of weight. His jaw tightened, his breath staggered, but he forced himself to stare into Adrian's eyes. Explain, he whispered, the word almost broken. Adrian didn't hesitate. 7 years ago, before the billionaire came into the picture, Elena was involved with someone else. Someone dangerous. Someone she met long before your marriage began to crumble. David blinked slowly, his heartbeat thundering. She told no one. She ended it. She walked away, Adrian continued. She thought the nightmare was behind her. Until 3 months ago, when that man, now working for the billionaire CEO, found her again. David swallowed, throat burning. That's why she left you, Adrian said. Not because she chose money. Because someone forced her hand. Someone threatened the truth she spent years burying. Adrian's eyes chilled. Someone who would rather destroy your life than let the truth surface. David felt the warehouse walls contracting around him, pulling him inward, suffocating him in revelations too twisted to comprehend. A daughter he never knew existed. A betrayal older than the billionaire. A fear that pushed Elena into another man's arms. He pressed his hands to his face as a muffled groan tore from his chest. Where is Elena now? David forced out, voice shaky, raw, but rising with a new kind of fire, one born not of heartbreak but awakening. Adrian stood slowly. That, he said softly, is what I'm going to help you find out. He held out an envelope. David stared at it. Inside he sensed the next step into a truth darker than anything he had ever imagined. Take it, Adrian said. Your life changed today. Now it's time you understood why. David reached forward, fingers trembling, and accepted the envelope, feeling without seeing that this was the first key to a door he had avoided his entire life. Your daughter, Adrian whispered almost gently. She deserves to know her father. The warehouse fell silent. A silence that felt like the edge of a storm. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. David stepped out of the warehouse with the envelope clutched so tightly in his hand that the edges dug into his palm. The night had deepened into a darker blue, and the streetlights buzzed faintly overhead like insects caught in their own exhaustion. He moved stiffly, as though every step pulled him farther away from the life he once understood and deeper into one he had never been prepared to face. Inside his car, he just sat there for several seconds, breathing heavily, trying to steady the tremor in his chest. His pulse wouldn't slow. His mind wouldn't silence. Every word Adrian spoke kept replaying. Pregnant, 7 years ago, dangerous man, your daughter, hidden truth, forced divorce. He stared at the envelope in the dim interior light. For a long moment he didn't open it. He simply held it as if the truth inside had a heartbeat of its own. When he finally tore the seal, a soft crack echoed in the quiet car. Inside, a photograph. A hospital record. A location scribbled in neat handwriting. The photograph was the first thing he lifted. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, with big brown eyes, curly hair and a shy half-smile. She was standing next to a school bus, holding a backpack shaped like a purple butterfly. David froze. His breath left him in a sharp, painful exhale, almost a gasp. His thumb brushed over the picture's glossy surface. His eyes burned. She looked like him. The shape of her mouth. The small crease in her chin. The slight narrowing of her eyes when she smiled. His heart slammed once, twice, then again. He squeezed his eyes shut as a deep tremor ran through him. Dear God, he whispered. A daughter. A daughter he never knew existed. A daughter who had lived 7 years without his voice, his protection, his presence, his love. He flipped to the hospital record next. Birth certificate copy. Mother, Elena Morris. Father, not listed. David's jaw tightened until it ached. He felt something dark and old rise in his chest. Something like grief colliding with fury. Elena didn't list him. Elena didn't tell him. Elena hid everything. But why? The last page was a simple note. If you want the truth, go here. 8 a.m. tomorrow. Come alone. Below it, a location outside the city, an old rural community clinic. David lowered the paper slowly. His entire body felt overheated, overstretched. As he sat there, headlights swept across his windshield. A motorcycle passed. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Life moved. The world kept spinning, even as his own world rhythmically cracked and reformed with each inhale. After several long minutes, David finally started the car. But instead of driving home, he found himself instinctively turning toward the only person who had been there when he collapsed. The only one who had seen him broken. The only one whose voice had steadied him. Grace. He arrived at the house just before midnight. The lights inside were off, but one lamp glowed softly near the living room window. Through it he could see her silhouette, sitting on the couch waiting. She stood immediately when he knocked. When she opened the door, her eyes widened. "David? Are you all right?" He didn't answer. He just handed her the envelope. Grace opened it slowly, her fingers careful, almost reverent. When she saw the photograph, her breath hitched. "Oh my God." David leaned against the doorframe, exhausted. "Tell me I'm not losing my mind." Grace stared at the picture a moment longer before lifting her gaze to him. "She looks like you," she whispered. The confirmation struck him deeper than he expected. He looked away quickly, blinking hard. "What are you going to do?" she asked. He tightened his jaw, a new resolve forming like steel in his bones. "I'm going to that clinic tomorrow," he said. "I'm going to find the truth. All of it." Grace hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering her voice. "David, what if the truth hurts more than the lie?" He lifted his eyes to hers. "Then I want to know exactly where the pain came from." A silence settled between them, heavy, tense, unfinished. Grace looked down at the photo again, her voice trembling. "She really might be yours." David nodded slowly. "Which means someone has been lying to me for 7 years." And in that moment, with exhaustion gripping his shoulders and fire rekindling behind his eyes, he didn't know whether the next day would bring closure or destroy what little remained of his past. But either way he was going. And whatever waited for him there would change everything. David arrived at the rural clinic just before sunrise. Mist clung to the fields around the building, turning the narrow road into a pale ribbon that felt detached from the rest of the world. The clinic itself was small, worn, and quiet, paint peeling, windows barred not for security but for survival. It looked like the kind of place people came when they had nowhere else to go, or when they were hiding. He parked the car and sat still for a long moment, his hands resting on the steering wheel. His heart beat with a strange rhythm, fear braided tightly with anticipation. Somewhere inside that building answers waited. And answers, he had learned, could be more dangerous than lies. He stepped out. Inside, the clinic smelled of antiseptic and old paper. A ceiling fan turned slowly, clicking with every rotation. A woman sat behind the front desk, flipping through files. She looked up when she saw him, her expression shifting subtly, recognition mixed with caution. "You're early," she said. David stiffened. "You were expecting me?" She nodded once. "Yes. He said you would come." That word again. She stood and motioned him down a short hallway. "Follow me." Each step echoed louder than it should have. His mind flickered with memories, Elena pacing the house years ago, anxious for no clear reason. Her sudden morning sickness she blamed on stress. Her insistence that they weren't ready for children yet. All the moments that never made sense, finally beginning to align. They stopped in front of a closed door. "She's inside," the woman said softly. David's throat tightened. "She." The woman studied him carefully. "Your daughter." The word struck him like a physical blow. Before he could respond, the door opened. A little girl stepped out. She was smaller than he imagined, wearing a faded yellow dress. Her hair was tied into 2 uneven pigtails, and she clutched a worn stuffed rabbit under one arm. She stopped when she saw him, head tilted slightly, eyes wide with cautious curiosity. David's chest constricted. Time slowed. For a second, neither of them moved. Then the girl spoke. "Are you the man my mommy cries about?" The question sliced through him. His knees weakened and he crouched instinctively, lowering himself to her level. His voice trembled. Does she cry a lot?" The girl nodded. "At night. When she thinks I'm asleep." David swallowed hard. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amara," she said. The name echoed in his head. Amara. He had once suggested that name to Elena years ago, half-jokingly when they talked about the future. She laughed then. Said it sounded too soft. She remembered. His vision blurred. Behind the girl, Elena stepped into view. She looked thinner. Older. Her eyes widened when she saw him, and for a moment, her face collapsed under the weight of everything she had carried alone for 7 years. "David," she whispered. The room seemed to shrink. "Why?" he asked quietly, standing slowly. "Why didn't you tell me?" Elena's lips trembled. "Because I was scared." "Of me?" "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "Of him." David's jaw clenched. "Who?" She hesitated, then spoke the name like a confession. "Adrian's fixer. The man who finds people and erases problems." A chill slid down David's spine. "He told me if you ever found out," Elena continued, tears spilling freely now, "you would be ruined. Framed. Arrested. Or worse." He said marrying Adrian was the only way to protect Amara. David felt anger flare, but it wasn't aimed at her alone. It was aimed at the entire web of manipulation that had wrapped around his life without his knowledge. And you believed him, David said. Elena nodded. Because he showed me proof of what he could do. David closed his eyes briefly. 7 years stolen. 7 years of fatherhood erased. Behind him the clinic door creaked. Footsteps entered. A familiar calm voice broke the tension. I was hoping you'd come today, David. David turned slowly. Ethan stood in the doorway. And in that moment, David realized this meeting had never been accidental. Not the number. Not the call. Not the collapse. Everything had been moving toward this exact moment. Ethan met his gaze, expression unreadable. Now, he said quietly, you're finally ready for the truth that will bring them all down. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. Ethan closed the clinic door behind him, the soft click sounding far louder than it should have. The hallway felt tighter now, the air heavier, as though truth itself had weight. David stood frozen between Elena and the little girl, his mind struggling to balance rage, grief, love, and disbelief all at once. Amara clutched her stuffed rabbit closer, sensing the shift. She looked from her mother to David, then to Ethan. Mommy, she whispered, is he the bad man? Elena knelt quickly, pulling her daughter close. No, sweetheart. He's here to help. David's chest tightened. Help. The word felt fragile. Ethan stepped forward slowly, careful not to startle the child. He crouched slightly, lowering himself to Amara's level. His voice softened. Hello, Amara. I'm Ethan. You don't know me, but I know you. Amara studied him with serious eyes. Do you know my daddy? Ethan glanced briefly at David before answering. Yes, he said gently. I do. David's throat burned. Ethan straightened and turned to Elena. You did exactly what Adrian wanted, he said quietly. You isolated David, made him look weak, and walked straight into the cage Adrian built. Elena flinched. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, Ethan replied, not unkindly. But fear narrows it. David finally found his voice. Why are you really here, Ethan? He asked. Not the half-truths. The real reason. Ethan met his gaze without blinking. Because Adrian Cole is about to destroy you completely, and you don't even know how close he is. Silence fell. Ethan pulled a tablet from his bag and tapped the screen. 2 days from now, Adrian plans to announce a massive acquisition at a global summit. Your old prototype, the one you abandoned, has been quietly rebuilt using stolen fragments of your design. He's filing it under Elena's name to make it look legitimate. Elena gasped. He told me it was just paperwork. That it would protect us. Ethan shook his head. It would bury you. Once the launch happens, David becomes irrelevant. Legally erased. David's hands curled slowly into fists. And the fixer? Ethan's expression darkened. Already watching this clinic. We don't have much time. As if summoned by his words, a low engine hum drifted through the thin walls. Tires on gravel. A car slowing outside. Elena's face drained of color. That's him. David stepped instinctively in front of Amara. Ethan moved fast. We leave. Now. They slipped through the back exit into the mist-covered fields. The morning sun was rising, painting the horizon gold, cruelly beautiful for such a moment. In the distance, a black SUV idled near the front of the clinic. They reached Ethan's car just as a man stepped out of the SUV, tall, broad, his face expressionless behind dark glasses. His gaze swept the area, sharp and searching. Get in, Ethan said urgently. As the car sped away, Amara pressed her face against the window. Daddy, she whispered, the word shy but certain. The sound shattered something inside David, and rebuilt something stronger in its place. Ethan glanced at him through the rearview mirror. You asked earlier what you should do next. David lifted his chin, eyes hard now, focused. Yes. Ethan nodded once. Then listen carefully. Because what you do in the next 48 hours will decide whether Adrian wins, or whether he loses everything. David looked down at his daughter, then out at the road ahead. For the first time since his collapse, fear loosened its grip. In its place rose something far more dangerous. Resolve. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. The city rose before them like a battlefield preparing for war. Glass towers pierced the sky, banners already hanging for the upcoming global summit. Screens flashed Adrian Cole's face everywhere, confident, immaculate, untouchable. To the world, he was the man who turned industries into empires. To David now, he was the architect of 7 stolen years. Inside a quiet office borrowed under a shell company Ethan controlled, the atmosphere was taut. No one spoke for a long moment. Amara sat at a small table drawing, unaware of how dangerously close her life had come to collapsing. Elena stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, guilt etched into every line of her face. David watched his daughter, memorizing the way she tilted her head when she concentrated, the faint dimple that appeared when she smiled to herself. Every second he had lost burned in his chest, but it fueled him instead of breaking him. Ethan broke the silence. Adrian believes he has already won, he said. That's what makes him careless. He turned his tablet toward David. On the screen were files, emails, timestamps, financial transfers, patent drafts. An entire web of manipulation laid bare. This, Ethan continued, is the original intellectual fingerprint of your prototype. Your handwriting. Your coding logic. Your engineering patterns. No one can replicate this without leaving traces. David leaned forward. So we expose him. Ethan nodded. But not privately. We do it publicly. At the summit. Elena's head snapped up. That's suicide. He owns that room. Ethan's mouth curved into a thin smile. Not anymore. He tapped the screen again. A new set of documents appeared. Names of board members, regulators, journalists. I quietly reacquired voting power in Adrian's company over the past 2 years, Ethan said. Silent shares. Proxy agreements. The moment he announces the acquisition, I trigger an emergency ethics review. David absorbed the magnitude of it. You planned this? Yes, Ethan said simply. Just not you. David looked at him sharply. I always knew Adrian would destroy himself eventually, Ethan continued. What I didn't expect was that the man he tried to erase would become the final lever. Elena's voice trembled. And me? Ethan turned to her. You testify. You hand over everything. You tell the truth about the fixer, the threats, the coercion. Tears slid down her face. He'll come after us. David stepped beside her, not touching but present. He already did, he said quietly. And he took enough. A knock sounded at the door. Grace entered, breathless but smiling faintly. They're ready downstairs. David stiffened. Ready for what? Grace met his eyes. The press. One journalist asked for you by name. David's heart thudded once. Ethan nodded approvingly. Good. Adrian thinks you're still broken. Still irrelevant. David straightened his jacket, his movements calm, deliberate. He looked down at Amara. I'll be right back, he said softly. She looked up, eyes bright. Okay, Daddy. The word anchored him. As he walked toward the elevator, the city's noise surged around him. Screens still showed Adrian's face. Security tightened around the summit hall. Power gathered where it always did. But for the first time, David wasn't walking in blind. He wasn't walking alone. Ethan's voice followed him. Remember, don't attack him. David paused. Then what do I do? Ethan smiled, cold and precise. Let him expose himself. The elevator doors slid shut. Down below, Adrian Cole prepared to step onto the world's biggest stage. And he had no idea that the man he once dismissed as nothing was about to end everything. The summit hall pulsed with power. Crystal chandeliers reflected off polished floors, and the air buzzed with overlapping languages, flashing cameras, and whispered deals worth more than entire countries. Adrian Cole stood at the center of it all, flawless in a tailored suit, confidence radiating from him as he approached the podium to thunderous applause. He smiled. The screens behind him lit up with the title of his presentation. The Future of Safety Technology. David watched from the back of the hall, unseen, unrecognized, just another man in the crowd. His heart beat steady now, no longer frantic. Beside him, Ethan stood with his hands in his pockets, calm as a man watching a long-anticipated storm finally arrive. Adrian began speaking. He talked about innovation, about vision, about saving lives. Then he unveiled the prototype. David's prototype. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the design rotated on the massive screen. Journalists scribbled furiously. Investors leaned forward. Adrian raised a hand, basking in the moment. This breakthrough, he said smoothly, was made possible through collaboration and sacrifice. David stepped forward. One step. Then another. Microphones turned. Security shifted uneasily. Whose sacrifice? David asked, his voice cutting cleanly through the hall. The room froze. Adrian's smile faltered for the first time. David continued walking until he stood beneath the lights, fully visible now. Cameras snapped. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Ethan tapped his phone once. Screens changed. Emails appeared. Patent drafts. Timestamps. Messages. Then Elena's recorded testimony began to play. Adrian's face drained of color. This design was stolen, David said calmly. My marriage was dismantled to obtain it. My child was used as leverage. And this man, he gestured toward Adrian, believed I would collapse and disappear. A journalist shouted, Mr. Cole, is this true? Adrian stammered. This is outrageous. Ethan's voice came through the speakers. Emergency ethics review initiated. Board vote in progress. Security moved. Adrian backed away, panic flashing across his features as his world imploded in real time. And then, as if history demanded symmetry, Adrian collapsed. Not theatrically. Not dramatically. He simply folded, knees buckling, breath stolen, body crashing to the floor beneath the same lights where he once stood untouchable. The hall erupted. David didn't move. He didn't smile. He simply watched. Later, as the chaos cleared, David stood outside the summit hall, the city stretching before him. Grace approached quietly, holding Amara's hand. She wanted to see you, Grace said softly. Amara ran into his arms. He knelt, holding her tightly, breathing her in like air after drowning. Behind them, Elena watched from a distance, free but changed. Broken but alive. Ethan stepped beside David. You remember what I said? He murmured. The real shock comes next week. David nodded. I remember. Ethan handed him a folder. The board voted. Unanimously. You now own the patent. And the company wants you as CEO. David looked down at his daughter. Then back at the city. 7 years ago, he had been a man who sacrificed everything for love. Today he was a man who reclaimed everything for truth. He tightened his hold on Amara. And for the first time in a very long time, he didn't collapse. He stood.